Hello and welcome back to my video series. It's a continuation of the player character generation. What I'm going to do today is continue that with that process. First of all, just one clarification I want to go back to when I was talking about my world generation rules. When I was talking about human encounters and adventure encounters, I was talking in the context of human encounters, say out in the wilderness, not relevant to things like with berserkers or nomads or dervishes, that type. These are the ones I've created from looking through the Dungeon Master's Guide at the different professions and hirelings and henchmen, and coming up with a composite table that looks at each of those professions and puts them in a kind of order that you would bump into those type of individuals, either in the settlement or say you were out on the highway between different, say a town and a village, out in the fields around settlements, just to give a kind of more variety to human interaction. Now, because human is a human-centric and dominated environment, I wanted to try and emphasize the interaction between the different types of humans. So I thought this would give a bit more variety and flavour to the campaign, without really veering too far away from the spirit of the game. So I think we got up to in the on the bullet point we'd actually reached. I think we'd got up to we were talking about 50% of the party. A maximum of 50% of the party can be the same class. Now this was really just to give some balance to the overall party. So you don't want it to be completely overloaded with fighters or probably magic users or clerics. You want a good balance, and hopefully the dice will give you that. There's no, I suppose, no real control whether it can give you the type of mix that you're after, but it's certainly going to give you some surprises that you have to deal with and explain around. The sex of the character, yes, we'd already talked about that. 25% of my adventurers are going to be female. The race is determined as 20% of the characters being demi-human, per that section in the Dungeon Master's Guide that we looked through. For assassins and thieves, they seem to be a bit more specific. So if we look at the followers table on page 16 and 17 of the DMG, when it comes to thieves, the race of the thief is a bit more specific. So I thought I would probably use this if a non-human is indicated to give me the split for the demi-human that I'm going to have. Now there seems to be an emphasis to races like half-orcs more than in the table on page 176, which had half-orcs, I think from memory, only about 5%. And likewise for assassins, half-orcs are even more predominant. So to reflect that kind of dynamic, it's probably best to use individual subtables. And the beauty of this is that they're already in the Dungeon Master's Guide. So I could say on a D50, this is the split that I would get for an assassin. And on a D55, this is the split I'd get for a thief. Now looking back at page 176, this was the original split. So dwarves coming in at 25%, another 25% for elves, gnomes 10, half elves, good chance of half elf, halflings 10%, and half orcs only 5. So if you want to have your half orcs represented in the game, the thieves and assassin tables are the ones to go for. Again, talking about multi-class, that's determined on that table. I should have kept it open at 176. If I generate an elf, 85% of them are going to be multi-class. So I can use that to generate the multi-class individual. When we're talking about the overall, the characters, the classes that are being generated, we'll use all the class and alignment restrictions in the player handbook. So apply them really quite rigidly to the letter. When it comes to hit points, because it's a really dangerous world out there for level 1 characters, they're going to get killed by everything. Poison, petrification, spells, even level 1 monsters are very dangerous. Everything is going to TPK your party. So to give them a bit of a break, I have veered away from just having a straight roll for hit points at the start. And I have decided to maintain a minimum of half standard. So say for a cleric, if with no constitution bonus, we're talking about a 1d8 hit points. If I roll a 3, I would ignore that and I would apply a 4. So it's always going to be a minimum of half. And this only applies for first level. So it just gives, you're not going to have your famous magic user walking around with 1 hit point, which basically was the story for my first ever character. Just a quick interlude, I started Dungeons and Dragons back in, it must have been the end of 1977 or very early 78. And the first dungeon I ever played in, we used the Holmes Blue Book Basic D&D, and my character was a magic user, and guess what, he had 1 hit point. He did die in that adventure, but my goodness, it really inspired me to, I was completely hooked after that game. And we played Basic for maybe 3 or 4 months, then we got the player's handbook, and after that we started moving into advanced. We played a kind of hybrid before we got the Dungeon Master's Guide, which is probably the entrance route for a lot of people that play this. Right, back to player character creation. Now to give a wee bit of variety for the background of the character, I thought I would use a table in the Dungeon Master's Guide that I pulled out when I was looking through, and I thought, well, we could use this for an alternative origin story. So if I go to page 120, it's just a suggestion, but I thought, well, why not just use the spirit of the guide. Under maps, we have a distance generation of where your hidden treasure trove is. And I thought, well, why not use that to give an indication of whether the character is a local, or does he come from a bit further away, or in this case, if it's 50 to 500, there's a chance that they come from a completely different culture. So I think for one of my characters, when we're going through my character sheets, I rolled here, outdoors, 50 to 500 miles. and I generated something that was about over 100 miles away. I used a D6 to indicate which direction it was, and I got north. So I thought, well, probably he comes from a Nordic type culture, Viking or Norse basis, and he would be like a barbarian. He was a fighter, so I thought, well, I'll use a kind of like a barbarian slant to the fighter class. So he appears like a big brawny Viking. The same could be said for any of the other directions that you go. So south, it could be a bit more, maybe not, Mediterranean. As the campaign is rooted in probably like a Tolkien-esque Northern European kind of setting, which is gonna have mainly pale skin, kind of white races. So the nearest you're gonna get within 200, 300 miles is gonna be probably more Mediterranean looking individuals. So I just thought that would be quite an interesting dynamic to have. The majority will be from the local area or from the kingdom or whatever polity that we're talking about. So not too far to go, and the ground rules determine names randomly. You could use random generators online or just use your own imagination. I think I used a bit of both. You'll be able to see how I got on when we come to looking at the character sheets, and when we create our own party we can have some ideas based probably on what the actual attributes look like and what the class is. Determining alignment and general tendencies. Now the only let's go to 101. Now the rule was that parties would tend to be of a lawful, I've seen the prevailing alignment of the area as lawful one, and on the good spectrum. I've only really got lawful or neutral characters veering towards good. It's not saying that chaotic good or neutral good wouldn't be included, but they tend to be more on lawful basis. And I think that helps at the start because they kind of the characters will mesh more into the setting and the culture. They'll have a bit more cultural acceptance, and I won't have to worry about the fact that they are running around like crazy chaotic neutral monsters. Chaotic neutral was one of my favourite alignments when I started. I had a fighter, cleric, magic user called Thingol Greycloak, half elf, and he was chaotic neutral, and boy did he live up to his alignment. But it's not an easy alignment to run in an organised party, so I want to try and keep it as simple as possible, and I thought, well, why not just maintain a more sane approach and keep to more mainstream alignments. Now on the trait side, I used the personality. Yes, I used general tendencies as the only NPC trait that I thought I could apply to my characters. Because we're going solo, I can't really control what each of the individuals are like. So to give them a wee bit of flavour, and individual personality. I thought, well, I'll just give them a general tendency. So you'll see that when I show you my character sheets, how I've applied that. Right, almost there. The secondary profession, appearance, age, height, and weight. Well, this is pretty straightforward. I think it's encouraged by the Dungeon Master's Guide to use a secondary profession for your characters. Quite a comprehensive list. Now, one of the modifications I was thinking about, which, as I say, isn't really a modification, it's more a kind of just an interpretation of this table, is, say we go back to my barbarian character, who's not really a barbarian as per Unearthed Arcana. It's nowhere near that. He's a fighter from a Nordic background. I thought to give some bit more individuality to that culture, you could have some tailored secondary skills. So it'd have much more like hunter, forester, maybe armorer, with you know, the fact that they're weaponsmiths, that type of thing. A bit more kind of honed in on a Nordic culture rather than a feudal 13th century Northern European. And then we have the age, which is sometimes important for if you want to achieve the right attribute level for a character class. Now I'll just, the way I apply this is just to say, it is supposed to be cumulative, but the way I've interpreted that would be that if a human is, say, 18, he will be a young adult. So I will subtract 1 point of wisdom and add a point of constitution. But if he's mature, say it was 22, that's already, the young adult scores are already embedded. So I will not subtract a point of wisdom. I won't add a point of constitution, but I will add 1 point of strength and add 1 point of wisdom. So it's like the entry level. So the assumption is that anything that's happened in the past is already embedded in those dice rolls. So I'm not sure whether that's the right way to do it, but it's the way I'm going to do it. And it doesn't seem to go against the spirit of what we're trying to do. The height and weight. Again, this is on the NPC section. You can use these tables here. So height and weight, male, female, some differences. And the last thing I do is I've got some appearance tables that I use, which I can show you some other stage, but they're really just, you know, hair color, skin complexion, that type of stuff. Some very basics, just to give a bit of a view on what they look like. Okay. So, with that said, we'll get my character. When I was generating my characters, I got 5 from the roll. My first was a fighter thief, half elf. This one's a male, background's feudal, alignment, lawful, neutral. Age 31. I'm still to put in his height and weight, skin, hair. These are the appearance factors I was talking about. Secondary skill is a farmer. You can see the general tendencies in play here. So he's rather opinionated. Probably wants to be the leader all the time, but isn't. His charisma's only 10. So here's the range of abilities. Nothing amazing, which I have no objection to under ability type characters. I think that's all part of it. These people are already kind of super, you know, the top alphas in from their cultures. So the fact that they've got 10, 14, 13, 12, 15 and 10 on the face of it might not look fantastic. That's probably, you're talking almost like a superhuman comparison to normal people. I've got the basics for saving throws. This character hasn't been completed that far, so this is probably a better example. This is my barbarian, Ozia North Star, who is actually neutral good. He is a bit of a joker. That's the general tendencies. He's a tall guy, 6 foot, not too heavy, so he looks pretty robust. He's only 16. Skin fair, hair blonde, eyes hazel. Again, look at these stats, nothing amazing. This was generated with 4 dice, taking the best and getting my minimums up, so there wasn't really too much manipulation to do here, because a fighter's minimum's 9 for strength, so this is all the equipment that I calculated, which was a little mini game that I played out in the starting town of Freehold. And I found that one of the discoveries of the encumbrance rules was that they have a major impact on this move ability. Even small amounts of encumbrance can get your move down from that maximum of 12 down to 9, and then you're fighting to kind of keep the weight down so that you don't suddenly veer into the 6-inch range, which has big implications for overland movement, not just dungeon crawling. I have a cleric, Goward the Pious, again human, from the local area, feudal. He's a cautious man. He's 21. He's charismatic, so he's a good talker, which is probably necessary in spreading the word of goodness. I have a half-elf magic user called Thenray Goldenleaf. Neutral alignment. So he's just really sitting on the fence as far as morality skills are going. He's a violent man, so you got to keep him under wraps, which for a magic user is an interesting mix. And the leader, and the only female in the party, my ranger, Valonia Fairborn. Human, female, neutral good, black hair, blue eyes, light tan skin, female Aragorn really. Quite good statistics, high charisma. Most of my party's outfitted with studded leather armour, which was available in the town. There was no chain from the availability score that I used. Okay, let's create our own player character group. Using this Dungeon Master's Guide as our template. Player character group 1. Okay. Number of characters. Number of characters in party. There'll always be from 2 to 5 characters in a character group, with men-at-arms or henchmen to round the party out. Now, we're not going to have any men-at-arms or henchmen at this stage, because we could use the initial wealth generation of the characters to see whether they can afford those type of services. So I'm really just concentrating on the 2 to 5. So that's a die of 4 plus 1. My least favorite dice. You don't roll a d4, you just drop it. 2 plus 1 is 3. So the 3, well, I'll help in keeping numbers down. 3 PCs. Use the 4d6 method with the minimums and necessary abilities guaranteed. Well, before I do that, let's do the class. This is probably one of the most important roles that you're going to do, because this will determine the entire complexion of the character party. So there's a character subtable here with all the different classes. So we've got to use our first D100. $98. Thief. Okay, that's an interesting start. You need a thief. Our second one. Cleric. Good. Surely we're going to have a fighter. Otherwise, we're going to be relying on the cleric to do the heavy lifting. 80. Magic user. Oh well, it is what it is. Right, I think at this stage we can determine what race these are going to be and whether they are male or female. So we will do the class first. So with the thief, that has the specialized table of 16, race of thief. So it's a die of 55. So I'm just going to pull, have the 6-sided die as the 10s and the units on 10-sided dice. So 28. Half elven. Surprise, surprise. So there's a chance that they'll be multi-class, so we'll be hoping for a fighter. There's a 20% chance that this half-elf is a lady. Nope. Male. Right, our cleric. Go to the standard race table. This one here. 30. Elf. An elven cleric. Race. Male. Well. Magic user. Oh, I made a mistake. I assumed that this was a non-human. There's a 20% chance. Sorry about that. I thought I was getting a bit carried away there. We're going to keep the male. There's a 20% chance that this is non-human. He's a human. That's a bit more like it. To get the human-centric. And our magic user, 20%. Oh, it is. That's 16. So, what type of non-human are we talking about? 23. Dwarf. Can dwarves be magic users? I don't think so. That is a good question. I don't think they can. Consult Player's Handbook. In times of need. Where's the ratio? Oh, here we go. Racial stock of character. Dwarf. No. Right, in that case, I have to re-roll. $96, half-orc. Now, I am almost certain that half-orcs cannot be magic users. But, let's check. Magic user. No. In fact, let's just check magic users. The only ones that can be, that are non-human, are elves, half elves, and obviously humans. So it's going to be a half elf, 61 to 85, that's 25, and an elf, that's 25, so it's 50-50. So 1 to 5, it's an elf. 6 to 10, it's an elf. So we got our elf in the end. %, female. Nope. So it's all males. Okay, we can generate some statistics now. Strength, intelligence, wisdom, dexterity, constitution, charisma. So for our first character, our thief, our cleric here, and our magic user here. Oh, that's a good start. Strength 18. Now, we can check whether this is a multi-class as well. So I'll come back to that once I've generated the statistics. Intelligence 17, that's pretty good. Yeah, good rolls these. Had to stop, 11. Oh, that's poor. Dexterity. Just the one you wanted. Well, it's currently 8, so I'll put that up to a minimum shortly. Constitution. 15. Charisma. 12. Okay, that's an interesting score. Right, let's check. This will get me on my toes, keep me on my toes to try and remember how to do the multi-class. But let's go back to page 177. Right, we have a half elf. Oh, sorry, we have an elf. There's an 85% chance it's multi-class. Okay. That's pretty good odds that we have another class kicking around in there. Yes. What multi-class do we have? Now, I used this table last time when I was doing my half-elf fighter thief, and I used the elf ranges here to determine what type of multi-class it was. So the choices we've got are an elf fighter magic user or an elf fighter magic user thief. So I don't think we can have. Can we have just a fighter thief? That's interesting. Fighter thief. Where are the multi-classes again? Druid. Oh, I love that picture. Paladin. I've always wanted a paladin. I've never played a paladin. I played rangers and any other classes, monks. magic users, but never a paladin. Oh, here we go. Fighter thief. Dwarves, elves, gnomes, half-elves, halflings, and half-orcs may be fighter thieves. So that means that this table isn't complete. Right. Right, I'm just going to say that he's more likely to be a fighter thief. And we don't really want... We don't want to go for three different types of... I will make a ruling that he is a fighter thief. Yeah, I just realised that I'd made a bit of an error there. He is actually a half-elf, so I was just getting a bit carried away with the races there. So let's have a quick look back. Apologies for this, but this is what happens when you're doing it live. It's not edited and recorded. So if you can forgive me. But now, as a fighter thief, this is far more like it. Right, back to our cleric. 12. Well. 14. Intelligence. Right, wisdom. Let's see. Oh dear. This is what happens, isn't it? Dexterity. Of the character. Dexterity is very useful sometimes for something for a magic user who wants to get out of a spot. 13. And charisma. Right, is there anything else I really want to... If I flesh these characters out and create little sheets for them, I'll probably... What I'll do is, I think instead of having... I've got individual sheets for my PCs, but for these, I think I'll have them on one page with all the necessary stats like hit points and... In fact, let's do the hit points just now. Or should I just adjust the characteristics? So for a fighter thief, I think the minimum for a thief is you need an dexterity of 9. A quick check. I haven't played too many thieves, so I've played an assassin, green-faced the throat slitter, but not too many thieves. There's energy there. There we go. Major ability for a thief is dexterity, and a character must have not less than 9. Okay, so this is where the override goes in, and that becomes a minimum of 9. Cleric is, that probably meets his minimum, which I think is 9. It's just his weakest stat, and that's the one he needs the most. But hey, that's the run of the dice. Yeah. Score of 9. Okay, and a magic user, yeah, blasted it. I think on the racial modifications, was there a nice little table somewhere that just summarizes? Was that in the Dungeon Master's Guide that I saw that? Okay, well, I can come back to that. I think we're probably done enough for today. Just on if I flesh out this party and have a summary sheet, I can present that at the next session, and probably recap on just some of the things that we've gone through on character generation. Hopefully this gives you an idea of how to use that particular section of the Dungeon Master's Guide just to come up with a party, like, you know, just off the cuff, or so I could have this as Team B in the campaign whenever Team A's you know, doing downtime. Okay, right, I think I'll call it a day there. Once again, thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.